Tatsarumanye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asatgrahat yadvatma patam griham andakopam vanam goto yadarim ashaye. So this is to his father of all people. When his father was asking, what's the best thing that you've learned in school? What an answer, huh? So it's color-coded for purpose. The samudvigna, sada samudvigna diyam means one's intelligence is always filled with anxiety. Sada samudvigna diyam. Those who are in this bodily conception, dehinam, and asat grahat. Now there's a long word-for-word explanation, but it's simply put, those in the eye and mind, those in bodily conception, dehinam, in the bodily conception, and they're very absorbed in all the temporary things. Asat grahat. Their griha is asat. Not just their family, but everything that they're taking shelter in is asat. And therefore, hitvatma patam. Atma patam is the place where spiritual culture is stopped. So hitvatma patam, we should give that place up. Atma patam, hitva, give it up. Because it's like an andakupam, like a blind well. And instead you should do what? Go to the vana. Vanam gato yad dharim ashriyeta, and take shelter, Hari, of Lord Hari, dharim ashriyeta. We didn't do the translation, but you have the idea. The second teaching had to do with friends and enemy. This is when Prahlada was speaking to his teachers about Vaishnavism, worshipping Vishnu, they were upset. Where'd you learn this? You've learned this from the enemy. Which enemy are you associating with? And to the teachers, he said, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pandita and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we're not different from one another. So don't think like this, friend's enemy. And when the personality of Godhead smiles upon you because of the devotional service that you've tried to render, then he takes away that misconception, the material conception of I and mine, or friends and enemy. Instead you think, everyone's servant of Krishna. Now, this is the very advanced stage. Some of you know there is such a thing as a very advanced stage. It's called Uttama. And most of us aren't Uttama, but Prahlada is. And most of us, at least, are striving to become Madhyama, the medium. And then there's the super beginning, Kanishta Madhyama Uttama. And this is describing the Uttama stage. The Uttama stage is Prahlada, where he sees, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, he sees everyone as Krishna's devotee. Now, some are not serving so nicely, but by spiritual constitution, we're servants of Krishna. Behaviors may be not so good, but behaviors is not the person. It's an important distinction. It's an important distinction. You know, the Christian way of saying is hate the sin, not the sinner. So the soul should not be hate. Person shouldn't be disliked. Behaviors can be, in the modes of nature for sure, but the souls are not influenced by the modes of nature. So this is the friends and enemy lesson. This is lesson number 2. And here's the verse following that one. Let's say the Sanskrit together. Esha atma swaparetya bodhir daratyayano kramano nupripagye Boyanti yad vartmani vedavadino Brahmadayo Yesha Benita Me Mati. Prabhupada would say this phrase over and over again, Veda Vada, so-called knowers of the Vedas. So in blue at the bottom, Moyanti, bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Vada means a follower of the Vedas, but those who are bewildered, they don't really know what following the Vedas is. So in the pink letters, Atma, Abud here, they're unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves because they think in terms of friend and enemy. Ya Esha Atma Swa Pare, friends and enemy, not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Then he's speaking about himself. That same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. Now, take the side of, that's an interesting way of translating it, but Esha Binnati Me Mati, he doesn't see Binna, he doesn't see separatism. So, but you're seeing me as the one who's taken the side of your enemy, but I'm just, situated in this position of receiving mercy, where I don't see friend's enemy. That's the distinction. That's the distinction. O Brahmanas, teachers, as iron is attracted by a magnetic stone, moves automatically towards the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand, thus I have no independence. So this is review. We saw this, now this is for the third time. They intimidate Prahlada and he doesn't yield. Now Hiranyakasipu's, the next teaching is going to be given to Hiranyakasipu. Now we know the verse. This is the 9 processes of bhakti. So let's say it together. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu, smaranam pada sevanam, archanam vandanam dasyam, sakyam atma nivedanam, iti pungsarpita Vishnu, bhakti chain navalakshana, kriyeta bhagavat yadha, tanmanye ditam uttamam. So we spent some time in the morning session, the pungsa arpita and the adha words, Prabhupada broke those down. We see that personalities that represent these 9 processes of bhakti. Here's teaching number 4. Let's hear it. Matirna Krishne Paratak Svatova Mito Vipadyeta Grahak Pratanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram Punak Punascharvita Charvana. So those who've been around for a while would like to hear Prabhupada's recorded lectures. How many times have you heard this verse? Punak Punascharvita Charvananam. Matirna Krishne. Never thinking of Krishna, never thinking of Krishna, never thinking. Because of their uncontrolled senses, Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram, persons too addicted to materialistic life, Grahak Pratanam, make progress towards Tamishram, towards hellish conditions, and Punak Punascharvata Charvananam, repeatedly chew that has already been chewed. Chewing the chewed. There's no juice. Punak Charvata Charvananam, repeatedly chewing that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused. Matirna Krishna. either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. And Prabhupada would spend some time discussing this one. Someone may try to help you, you may try to make effort or combination, still nothing happens. Or mogasha moga karma no moga jnana vichetasaha. So the one is defeated or defeated or defeated. Take your choice. So their efforts are never going to be successful. Someone trying to help them is never going to be successful. The combination of the two is never going to be successful to get out of that hellish condition. So Prahlada is saying to his father, you're a hopeless case. But he's not saying that. He's just saying it a little more eloquently. Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too much addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination towards Krishna are never aroused. Like, he wants to know, Na te vidu svarta gatim hi vishnum darashaya ye bahir artamanina adanta yantan niyamanas te pisha tantriyam urudam nibaddha. Prabhupada liked Prahlada's teachings, and he liked teaching Prahlada's teachings. Celebrated verse. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, durashaya, the consciousness of enjoying material life, and who have therefore accepted as their leader a guru or similar blind man, attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Vishnu, not te vidu, not te vidu. Sva artakatim hi Vishnum. And then the blind leading the blind, andha yatandhayar upaniyamanas, miss the right path and fall into the ditch. Materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, uru damni badha, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. Now this is the little boy teaching his father about the way of his life. And of course his father doesn't like it. But here's the blind leading the blind. One of many nice pictures of the blind leading the blind. And it doesn't end up well, because the one leading is blind, and all following are blind. An actual guru is Shrotriya, one who has heard or received perfect knowledge through parampara, the disciplic succession. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj did not recognize a seminal spiritual master. Now, seminal spiritual master is Shukracharya. The very meaning of his name, Shukra Acharya, means seminal spiritual master, because he didn't have the qualification, but it was called Shukracharya because it was his family function, or by his father he became the Acharya, but not qualified, thus Shukracharya. Such blind men lead many other blind followers without true knowledge of material conditions, but they are not accepted by devotees like Prahlada Maharaj. So who is accepted by Prahlada Maharaj? There's Prabhupada's lotus feet. Look at that. Shh. Let's chant together. Naishamati stavad urokramangrim sparshat anarto bhagamo yadartaha mahiyasam pada rajobhishekam nishkinchananam navranita yavat. Just want to look at Prabhupada's lotus feet for a while. Here's the translation. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely nishkinchananam, completely freed from material contamination. Persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities, Urukramangrim. Though only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. So again, the question was, where'd you learn this? He's giving a very complete answer. You won't understand. The only way you can understand is you get the mercy of one who is completely freed from material contamination, and then you can start to understand. And he hasn't directly answered the question, but he's answered the question. The question was, who'd you hear this from? Which enemy did you hear this from? So he's not saying by name, Narada Muni. He's saying you wouldn't understand anyways. This is your misfortune. And for you to understand something about this, dust from the lotus feet. Smear upon their bodies the dust of lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Mahiyasam padarajobhishekam, padaraja, dust from the lotus feet. And abhishek, take a bath. Smear upon your body the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medya na bodha shrutena. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, by presenting lectures in an erudite way, pravachanena labhya, or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. Those are revered in the world, but one cannot become self-realized by those methods. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Yasya devi para bhaktir yata devi tata guru tasyaite katita hyarta rakashante mahatmanaha. Then there's another verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, Upanishad. The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. So, Hiranyakasipu wants to have his son killed. Are looking up to him and going back and hearing his recorded lectures. And anyway, for him, Krishna consciousness was a festival, and it wasn't attracting people who were down and out. It was attracting people who wanted a festival. And Krishna consciousness is meant to be like that. Now, there's some work, but work can also be a festival if the mood of what one is applying oneself to is knowingly is bringing one closer to the personality of Godhead. That's part of the festival. But the process itself is joyfully performed. The process itself. So, Prabhupada attracted people not because they were suffering. He attracted people by, happy people. By kirtan and dancing and prasadam and festivals and, wow. So it's we don't have to, the down and out people, there's our audience. It's persons who have their light on. By that I mean, whatever they have, they understand. In this past 10 days of travel, going out in upstate New York, I met a lot of people that they're very clear that happiness is not within these worldly things. And they're not people that are not down and out people. They have those things. And it's not a place of shelter. It's not like they're suffering and depressed or something like that. They can see it's not real happiness. You know, these are different groups of people, including some college students. There they are in college studying something to get something, and they're realizing that's not what happiness is. So what's their motivation? So they want happiness, and they recognize what isn't. So they're looking for a method that's going to bring them closer to what real happiness is. That's an intelligent person. Doesn't have to be down and out.
For the newcomer, what does this dust mean? And for us, what does this dust mean?
I read something recently, and unfortunately I didn't write it down. But there's something I read recently. If somebody knows where this is, please tell me so I can find it again. But Prabhupada was explaining this. It's sound. Dust from the feet of the devotee is the mercy that comes from the devotee through the form of sound that enters the ear. That's how one gets so it's not like we have to like grab each other's feet or something. There's nothing, back to your question, doesn't mean an actual physical substance. Yes, it can mean an actual physical substance, but in lieu of the actual physical substance, it comes to one through the ear in the form of the sound, and the sound is the mood of loving service. And that's the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee through their messages.